Coming up on this Friday edition of Daybreak, the United States says it supports South Korea's efforts to improve inter-Korean ties, despite its own recent moves to up the pressure on North Korea. Jordan says it's still holding an Iraqi would-be suicide bomber as the Islamic State's deadline for her release passes. The extremist group had threatened to kill a Jordanian pilot unless she was handed over by sunset. Plus, Malaysia officially declares the disappearance of flight MH370 an accident and says all 239 people on board are presumed dead. Daybreak begins now.
Hello and thanks for joining us. To our viewers around the world, it's 6 a.m. on Friday, January 30th here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom and you're tuned in to Daybreak. Our top story this morning. A visiting US official says there's no daylight between the North Korea policies of the United States and South Korea. US Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs Wendy Sherman told South Korean officials that Washington is just as committed to Pyongyang's denuclearization and the eventual unification of the Koreas as Seoul is. Our Hwang Sang-hee reports.
U.S. Undersecretary of State Wendy Sherman reiterated that the United States and South Korea share the same policy when it comes to North Korea. This as Washington has been ramping up pressure on Pyongyang amid Seoul's efforts to improve inter-Korean relations, raising concerns that the two allies were losing coordination.
We have the same policy as the Republic of Korea does, and that is to ultimately have a denuclearized peninsula. Denuclearization is the first priority where North Korea is concerned.
Following a vice minister's meeting in Seoul on Thursday, Sherman said all members of the six-party nuclear talks, aside from North Korea, are working together to see what more they can do to engage Pyongyang. The multilateral dialogue involving the two Koreas, the U.S., China, Japan, and Russia, has been stalled for more than 6 years. Earlier this month, the U.S. rejected North Korea's offer to temporarily suspend nuclear tests in return for a halt in joint military drills between Seoul and Washington. It has been urging Pyongyang to take steps towards denuclearization before returning to talks, but Sherman declined to specify what those steps were.
North Korea needs to show concretely that it's taking steps towards denuclearization. There are many ways to do that, and I support our special envoy in his efforts, and I'm not going to list specifics either.
Sherman reiterated that Washington supports President Park Geun-hye's initiatives for inter-Korean dialogue, saying that the U.S. looks forward to the day the peninsula is unified. South Korea was the second leg of her three-nation tour, which also included China and Japan. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
The United States says Russia is on board when it comes to the need to denuclearize North Korea. Speaking to reporters in Beijing on Thursday, Washington's special representative for North Korea policy, Sung Kim, said that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's expected visit to Moscow in May doesn't change Russia's stance on Pyongyang's nuclear program, as agreed upon in a joint six-party statement back in 2005. Sung Kim was in China for North Korea-related talks with Chinese nuclear negotiators. US-based experts on East Asia are predicting yet another rocky year in terms of Korea-Japan ties, despite 2015 marking the 50th anniversary of the establishment of the two countries' diplomatic relations. A poll by the Center for Strategic and International Studies found that 6 out of 10 experts said they expect ties to remain frosty this year and for cooperation between Seoul, Tokyo and Washington to be sporadic. More than 20% said they think ties will worsen due to disputes over territorial and historical issues. A mere 11% believe relations will improve to a degree, where President Park Geun-hye and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe will hold their first summit The survey was conducted on around 100 experts and scholars. Now, Korea's Samsung Electronics logged its lowest annual profit in 3 years last year as its smartphone sales continue to feel the heat from intensifying competition, especially from up-and-coming Chinese manufacturers. Our Song Ji-sun reports.
Samsung Electronics has rebounded from its earnings shock in the third quarter of last year, but it's still underperforming compared to the previous year. Samsung's operating profit for the fourth quarter stood at $4.9 billion, up 30% from the previous quarter. That still marks a 36% on-year decrease, but the drop was slower than in the third quarter as Samsung's chip business reported strong sales at a 4-year high. Memory chips have become Samsung's biggest profit driver in the third quarter, overtaking handsets, and now account for more than half of the company's profit at $2.5 billion. Samsung's final Q4 figures come just days after its rival Apple announced a record net income of $18 billion for the same period, nearly 4 times higher than that of Samsung's. Profit for the mobile division plummeted to just $1.8 billion from 2013's $5 billion, and data from Strategy Analytics show that Samsung and Apple each sold 74.5 million units of smartphones in the last quarter. That's a 46% jump for Apple, but a 15% drop for Samsung in the sector, with Apple's large-screen iPhone 6 models in direct competition with the Korean tech giant. Samsung vowed to reinforce its high-end lineup with premium models, at the same time expanding its share in the low-end market by launching its mid-priced A3 and A5 models in the global market. Analysts forecast a modest recovery for the company this year on the back of demand for its memory chips and processors from its rival smartphone makers. Samsung also followed other Korean firms in committing to paying higher dividends to its shareholders by raising the amount by nearly 40% from a year earlier to $18 per share. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
Korea's top steelmaker POSCO posted operating profits of roughly $2.7 billion last year. That's up 7% from the year before. Despite tough competition from Chinese competitors, POSCO said falling raw material prices and its high value-added products boosted the company's bottom line. Now, Korea's top web portal Naver saw its operating profit jump 50% on year. Despite a sharp drop in its net profit, Naver says its messaging service Line, that mostly helped its earnings, continue to expand overseas in the fourth quarter thanks to high smartphone penetration. Korea's main stock exchange has been taken off a list of state institutions. Now, this delisting will enable it to implement an alternative trading system and pursue overseas operations in the future. The Finance Ministry says the Korea Exchange met the requirements to be delisted after fixing its lax management and cutting welfare benefits to employees by nearly 70%. The Korea Exchange was designated as a public institution back in 2009 by the Lee Myung-bak administration, 4 years after it was founded. Now, when investors think of emerging markets worth putting their money into, many still think of Brazil, Russia, India and China, also known as the BRIC Group. But some analysts suggest it's time to start looking beyond those nations. Our Oh Jin-ju has more.
Apart from the BRIC countries, which do you think is the most promising emerging market this year? The Korea International Trade Association asked some 540 Korean companies this question, and the answer is Vietnam. In fact, most of the countries ranked high on the list were Southeast Asian countries, namely Indonesia, Thailand, and Malaysia. The top 15 nations also include Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and Poland. What's noticeable about these countries is their demographics. The Trade Association says young people between the ages of 15 and 24 make up a big portion of the population of those top 15 countries. This means they have a lot of room to grow, as these are the people who will lead future production and consumption. This is perhaps why more than half of the Korean firms surveyed said they're considering making inroads into those markets. As for the top choice Vietnam, its economic growth last year hovered above the global average at 5.6% and is forecast to continue that momentum this year. The most volatile variable for Hanoi is crude oil prices. As an oil exporting country, falling crude prices will hurt its GDP, but Vietnamese officials say it will also help bring down the country's high inflation rate. But no matter what the case, experts warn that those wishing to enter these emerging markets, including Vietnam, will have to vigorously monitor the market conditions and utilize free trade agreements, as these countries often come with high risks. Oh Jin-ju, Arirang News.
Now, for travellers planning a trip to an urban area, this new report called the Safe Cities Index is something you might want to keep an eye on. Topping the list as the safest city in the world is Tokyo. The Economist Intelligence Unit selected 50 cities from around the world and analysed them based on 4 criteria: digital security, health security, infrastructure safety and personal safety. Some other rich Asian cities like Singapore and Osaka, and European cities like Stockholm and Zurich took up some of the other top spots. South Korea's capital, Seoul, ranked at 24th on the list. Time now for a look through the global headlines we're following this Friday morning from Seoul. For that, we turn to Eunice Kim, standing by at the news center. Good morning, Eunice.
And good morning to you, Mark. The sunset deadline imposed by the latest purported Islamic State audio has come and gone with no prisoner swap. Jordan remains resolute on its demand that the extremist group prove the young Jordanian pilot it is holding is alive and well.
Jordan requested a proof of life for the life of the Jordanian pilot, and we have not received that yet. We want to see a proof of life of the Jordanian pilot, and then we can talk about the exchange between Sajid al-Rishawi and the Jordanian pilot.
The spokesman, Al-Momani, made that statement about an hour before the new deadline was to pass. There has been no public response from the IS group since an audio message was posted online early Thursday. The voice, identifying itself as Japanese hostage Kenji Goto, said the militants would kill the 27-year-old Jordanian pilot immediately if the female Iraqi fighter held by Amman was not delivered to the Turkish border by sunset Iraq time. The Jordanian spokesman separately told reporters Amman was working with Tokyo to also secure the release of the Japanese war correspondent. Family of both IS hostages in Jordan and Japan made pleas on Thursday, holding on to hope that their loved ones would return home alive. A maternity and children's hospital is in shambles this Thursday afternoon in Mexico City after a gas explosion ripped through a significant part of the building. Rescue teams are pouring through the rubble and twisted metal to save the some 100 people who were believed to have been inside at the time of the blast. The city's mayor said authorities confirmed one woman and a baby had died, though that death toll could rise. More than 60 others were injured, with some 20 people in critical condition. Officials in Malaysia have officially declared the cause of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370's disappearance was an accident. They also said they had pursued every credible lead, but no trace of the Boeing 777 so far, missing since March 8th of last year, had been found, despite ongoing recovery operations in the southern Indian Ocean. The announcement would clear for compensation to be paid to the family of the 239 people who were on board the Beijing-bound flight. All are presumed dead. Chinese family members expressed disappointment to the news, saying authorities need to produce evidence to their claims. The World Health Organization says the fight against Ebola is entering a second phase to end the epidemic, as the worst-hit countries of Sierra Leone, Liberia, and Guinea are observing less than 100 new cases per week. It said the total number of new cases added up to 99 in the week through January 25th, which is the lowest tally since June of last year. But the Global Ebola Emergency Coordinator for UNICEF warned it was too early to declare success, warning that the pathogen had been far too underestimated. Dr. Peter Salma also added some 10,000 children had lost one or both parents due to the deadly virus so far.
We start before the sun rises to bring you the latest stories out of Korea. We also lead the way with important global coverage. Stay on the pulse of what is happening with Daybreak.
Now back here in Korea, and the country's education ministry aims to strengthen the nation's public safety education program in schools by increasing the number of classroom hours and offering more hands-on training. Park Ji-won reports.
Since last year's tragic ferry disaster that claimed hundreds of innocent young lives, people have pointed to the lack of public safety education in Korea. In response, the nation's education ministry is aiming to strengthen public safety education for students.
The nation grieved over the Sewol-ho ferry tragedy. Life and safety are top priorities for the Park Geun-hye administration, and we aim to give students public safety education to prevent such a tragedy from recurring.
Although the current law stipulates that students undergo 44 hours of public safety education per year, only 6 of those hours are related to disaster prevention. And most of the time is spent in lectures with few opportunities for hands-on training. So on Thursday, the education minister paid a visit to Korea's largest public safety education center located in Taebaek, Gangwon-do province to take a tour. The facility, called 365 Safe Town, provides hands-on training from life-saving techniques to three-dimensional disaster simulations. The ministry is considering establishing MOUs with safety awareness facilities such as this to provide kids with public safety education that's both fun and effective.
More than ever, we need to raise awareness about public safety among students. We will introduce policies so that public safety awareness facilities like this can be part of students' education.
This month, the Education Ministry will also designate 51 schools nationwide as locations for a pilot program for public safety. Park Ji-won, Arirang News, Taebaek.
Australia's biggest national holiday was celebrated right here in Seoul last night. Australia Day was marked with an event that showcased everything the land down under has to offer Korea. Connie Lee has more.
Fresh, plump cherries, mangoes as large as your face, and deep red wine. These are just a few of the things that are here in Korea, straight from Australia. Celebrating Australia Day under the theme of Showcasing Australia, the nation's embassy in Seoul held a gala event to highlight all the things the nation has to offer to Korea as a key trade and investment partner. With the Korea-Australia Free Trade Agreement in full effect since December 2014, there are certain items from the land down under that are now cheaper here in Seoul. For instance, these cherries. The removal of the 24% tariff has made these fruits much more affordable to Korean consumers. Likewise for Australian wine.
I'm a lover of wine. It's a personal interest of mine. So I think with the tariff on wine coming down with the free trade agreement, I hope to see more range of choice of Australian wine in the market.
The Australian ambassador adds that he wants to stimulate new areas of trade this year and maintain his country's strong defense relationship with Korea.
We put a big emphasis on our defence relationship. Australia is very much an Asia-Pacific country, so peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula is central to our economic health.
The event also included a special performance by Korean-Australian pop singer Tommy Im, the 2013 winner of the singing show X Factor Australia.
I do want to come back to Korea this year, and if I get the opportunity, I want to do my own concert and, actually get to meet my fans and spend a bit more time here.
Connie Lee, Arirang News.
And TGI Friday, everyone, as we kick things off with the 2015 Asian Cup, where the final is set between Korea and the host nation Australia. Now, will it be Korea's defense or Australia's offense that wins it all? Now, so far, Korea has yet to give up a single goal in the entire tournament and hasn't lost a single match neither. But will they be able to continue that with the kind of offense Australia has shown in this tournament? Of course, despite Korea's 1-0 win over Australia during the group stages, Tim Cahill doesn't seem to care as he looks to win one for the home crowd. Meanwhile, it's been a great tournament for the previously unknown Lee Jung-hyuk and Kim Jin-hyun, who look to continue their great form and help Chaduri retire from the national team with an Asian Cup title. Now, once considered one of the biggest names in Korean sports, Park Tae-hwan really had it all, and slowly all the tension started going away until recently, and all for the wrong reasons. The Olympic swimmer, who's currently being investigated for receiving testosterone shots, is set for a hearing with FINA late next month. However, according to his management team, Team GMP has already hired a Korean lawyer and another legal rep in Switzerland who will deal with his case. Now, they added that this incident will not hold him back from training as he's set to go on with his scheduled training. Two-time PGA Tour winner Bae Sang-moon was asked to return to Korea by January 30th or face the prosecutors. Now it's January 30th today and he's not here. But according to a close source to Bae Sang-moon, he's filed an administrative suit on January 16th through his legal rep. This means that while the lawsuit is underway, he's allowed to stay overseas, meaning can still compete for now. Another source close to the 29-year-old added that if he wanted to dodge the military service, he could have easily just gotten the U.S. citizenship, but just wants an extension before he does fulfill his military duties. Now, Bae Sang-moon is currently the highest-ranked Korean PGA golfer at 76th and is a strong candidate to make the national team for the 2016 Rio Summer Games. Now, the interest in Kang Jung-ho over in the U.S. is pretty high, as they've never seen a KBO position player ever make a transition to the majors. So it's actually surprising that no one in the States have interviewed him just yet. Well, that is until Baseball America got the first U.S. interview recently. Now, with the really signed Pirate currently training with his former team over in Arizona, Baseball America got the first interview where he talked about how he feels in preparations for his first season in the majors. And while he mentioned getting pointers and getting adjusted to the majors thanks to former major leaguers like Seo Jae-eung and Sonny Kim, he did sound pretty confident, stating, "MLB is baseball too. Baseball is baseball, and I'm ready for it." Well, best of luck to him, and that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day, and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning. Jeollado and Gyeongsangdo provinces received heavy snowfall overnight, so if you're in those regions, be extra cautious on the icy and snowy roads this morning. And as we can see, the rain clouds are slowly moving away from the peninsula, so once the rain is all gone, the sun will come out from behind the clouds and it should be much sunnier today. But it's another chilly morning we are waking up to, and the top temperatures should be a few notches lower than yesterday. Also, frigid wind will continue to sweep the nation, so bundle up to stay warm. With that in mind, let's take a closer look at the readings for today. Now, the daily low in Seoul is kicking off at -5, but right now it feels like -8. Then the daytime high will climb to 1, and Daegu and Gwangju rise to 6 and 4, and Busan will peak at 8 this afternoon. And as for the other regions, Jeju Island should see a high of 6, and Daejeon and Dokdo will climb to 3. That's all I have for you for Korea, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's going to do it for now. Korea Today is coming up in half an hour's time. Have a great day and a wonderful weekend. Goodbye.